Thanks, John. And time now for this week's Sunday Spotlight. The federal government is open after concerns of a shutdown. A Senate vote with just hours to go before the deadline leaves things running for the next month and a half. 13 News anchor Andrew Capasso is live with this morning's Sunday Spotlight. He's been tracking the back and forth and the only local reporter with reaction from Southern Arizona lawmakers in D.C. Andrew, good morning.
Shelby, good morning to you. As you mentioned, the government is open this morning, but not without days of chaos, name calling, finger pointing, and a whole lot of stalling. Here's where we are right now. The government is running at the same funding levels until November 17th. There is $6 billion for disaster relief across this country, but no new money dedicated to the southern border. That's a big concern for Republicans, and no new money for Ukraine aid. That is a concern for the Democrats. While most lawmakers say keeping our government open is more important than helping another, no matter how important the cause is, Democrats and the White House now pushing for a bill dedicated to Ukraine. As for how our Southern Arizona lawmakers voted, Democrat Raul Grijalva and Republican Juan Ciscomani were both a yes. Ciscomani, you see, the only Republican in Arizona to vote for this. In the United States Senate, Democrat Mark Kelly and Independent Kyrsten Sinema also voting for the bill. Now to the local impact with this potential shutdown in the rearview mirror. More than 29,000 federal workers will still get paid in Southern Arizona. There will not be any delay for 8 disaster recovery projects across the state, and help will remain available for more than 6,000 in the low-income energy assistance program. Our military, especially ones at the border, will still get paid. But as I said, getting to this point, anything but easy. Lots of eyes on Republican members in the House. They're in the majority. They control the agenda. They were the ones who had to decide what could pass. I spoke with Southern Arizona GOP Congressman Juan Ciscomani right after that final vote. Is this what we can expect when it comes to governing on a deadline here?
Gosh, I hope not. I hope not, Andrew. This was a clear example of how broken Washington is. I've been here for 9 months. And if I've ever had any proof of how dysfunctional Washington is overall, was the last few weeks. There's no reason why we should have been at the point that we are today. And leading up to it this close and making so many people anxious and nervous, thinking that we weren't going to get the job done. And at times it seemed very difficult. I never lost hope, but we're here.
More Democratic votes than GOP votes. What's your reaction?
Well, the majority of the Republicans did vote for this. At the end, the numbers are what they are, and we got it through. We got it passed. The way that the bill looks, it was not my first option, second, third choice, even fourth. We tried many versions throughout this whole process. It got to the point that this was the only option that we had in order to avoid a shutdown. And I was clear from the very beginning that I was going to do everything that I could to avoid a shutdown, and that's exactly what I did today.
No border money in here. I know the speaker was pushing for that. That's not in this. What do you think about that?
That's very concerning. That's very concerning. That's why the version that we tried to pass yesterday even had money for the border. That was always our preference. It got to this point that it was either this or shutting down. We had to choose this. It gives us a window to get this done. We did pass the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill out of the House, which funds the efforts on the border, but there's more work to be done there. We have a crisis, as you know, on the border, but this is the time that we needed to get all the bills through, but the border continues to be a priority for me as well, and we're going to continue to push on that. But the Homeland Security Bill did get funded. That's important to know.
Now, Mr. Ciscomani sits on the House Appropriations Committee. While there are 8 budget bills left to pass in the House, all 12, which make up the federal budget, need to be approved by both chambers by mid-November, or we end up in this very same spot again. On the Democratic side, Representative Raul Grijalva tells me there's a lesson for all lawmakers moving forward, especially with this new deadline approaching.
I hope there's a lesson learned here. We have a 45-day grace period where the country continues to function, but in that 45-day period, some critical decisions need to be made. But the lesson learned that if you're going to do this bipartisan, you need each other. And at some point, you have to extract the branch that is not allowing to have it. And I hope the majority learned that lesson. I hope my Republican colleagues learned that lesson, that by continuing to make everything an ideological fight, you risk making any progress, and you begin to sacrifice very important things like our economy and the well-being of our families. Now, That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, that this is essentially the Democrats passed it. We were unanimous in our votes on that. And which again says that there was things like the undoing the Ukraine funding that was very particular to many Democrats, but the overall picture, we'll fight that fight before the 45 days are up. But for the Democrats, it was basically, Andrew, what was agreed upon with the debt ceiling deal, the funding levels, and not putting extraneous issues in there that didn't belong. Abortion ban, border wall, cutting healthcare for seniors, taking those out and making it what was agreed upon, the deal that was made, the word that was given by Speaker McCarthy. That's essentially what we voted on today.
So now you've got federal workers that are going to get paid, border agents. There's no change, at least for the next 45 days. What's your message to those folks who had to wait 9 hours before the deadline to see what was going to happen here?
Well, that they should assess it. They should assess who's making these decisions and who is putting us in the position that we're in. And I think as not only as federal employees, but being part of our civil society and the democracy, to exercise those consequences.
Are you upset there's no Ukraine money in this?
No, not really. I think it's stupid not to have it in there. But we have passed Ukraine funding by over 300 votes in the House and over 80 votes in the Senate 2 times. And if that's what needs to happen, it'll happen.
And from here, the debate on helping Ukraine with new legislation, a strong push for that on both sides of the aisle this morning. That as Congress starts working on passing a budget for this fiscal year, which starts today. We're tracking all of it very closely. A lot of Arizona impact in those bills, from the border to money for every major federal agency. A lot on the line with that new deadline of November 17th. That is all for this week's Sunday Spotlight. I'm Andrew Capasso, 13 News Live this morning with Shelby. Be back after this quick break.